So today I'm really excited. We've got one of our Dragon co-workers with us today, and I'm really glad she's on. I think the subject she's going to talk about is really, really relevant to what we're talking about with this current situation we're in. Even though we're coming out of lockdown, it's still a very, very stressful place we're in. So I'm really glad to have her on the Lunch and Learn today. So if I could please welcome Maria Chumas Baker from Darkness2light. Hi, Maria.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm all right, thank you very much, Roland. I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, good.
Good. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Okay.
Appreciate you giving out time and really looking forward to your presentation. So how's the last few months been for you, Maria? What have you been up to?
Well, to be honest, actually, it's actually been a little bit dire in terms of actually losing clients to not being able to see them face to face. All my clients actually love to do face-to-face, and quite a lot of them are older people, and so Zoom is just not possible. Great difficulty. So it's been quite upsetting not being able to see them, but they're beginning to come back now. My first one is next Monday, so I've had to sort of get everything ready and get all my risk assessment done and move my therapy room to downstairs near the front door and all that sort of stuff. So I contacted him this morning and to make sure he was all right to come on Monday. So yeah, hopefully it'll build up again. But as I say, I think like everybody, lockdown has caused a lot of issues. It's all a case of the unknown, isn't it? We're not quite sure when they're going to be completely out, and we've got to start wearing masks, I think, next week in supermarkets and restaurants and stuff. So the goalposts are changing all the time, and I think that's what's worrying. But I'm doing a lot of social media and getting back on track. So thank you.
Because I've seen you on social media. I've seen you a lot now recently on social media. So
one
benefit. We've all had time for those things, haven't we? Those social media and other marketing things that sometimes you're busy to do.
I know. Takes up a lot of time as well. But anyway, we have to do it. So
before we start, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about yourself and perhaps about Darkness2light and about how you started Darkness2light and your sort of journey up to where we are.
Yeah, of course. Hi everybody. My name is Maria. Actually, I was previously a bilingual English-French-speaking personal assistant, and I've been doing that since 2002, so a long time. And I got a bit bored with it. And after a session of Solution-Focussed Hypnotherapy in early 2017, I actually decided that I wanted to change my career and train to become a Solution-Focused Hypnotherapist myself, even though I thought it was all a bit woo-woo to start with. I had a session, and I've always loved psychology, sociology, and helping people and the brain, etc. I've been fascinated by it, so I thought, I'm going to do it. So anyway, I'm married with one daughter, 2 beautiful grandchildren, and a dog called Twiglet, who's over there sitting on the couch. She's my shadow. I lived and worked in Europe for some time, and so I still have European connections. I love traveling to France. I adore it, and I love using my French language skills. I just love it to bits. So just going back to my training, I actually completed my training in October 2018 after a long and exhilarating period of study, lectures, research, and very hard practice work, which included working with clients to train on and writing up lots and lots of case studies about them. So today I'm just going to be doing a short presentation about solution-focused hypnotherapy, what it is, what it's used for, and how it can help people. So I really hope you enjoy the ride, and if you have any questions afterwards, I'll endeavour to answer them for you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Maria. If anyone's got any questions, please drop them in the comments, and then I'll let Maria know towards the end. But Maria, over to you then, Maria. I shall let you carry on.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'll mute myself off because my guy with the chainsaw has just started off. My next door neighbour decided to cut down the tree today. So I think it's just stopped again. So I'll mute myself and leave it completely to you for the moment, Maria.
Okay. All right then. Thanks, Roland. See you in a minute. Okay, that's great. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen with you here. So fantastic. So let me just mute myself down there. Okay, hello. So as I said, my name's Maria Chumas Baker, and I run Darkness2light Hypnotherapy, which is a solution-focused hypnotherapy and psychotherapy practice, online and face-to-face here in Kent, but also nationwide. So today, I'd just like to talk to you about why we suffer from certain issues like anxiety and depression, and how these are created in the brain and what we can actually do about it. So in this short presentation, we will be looking at the two different mindsets we use, how our body actually responds to anxiety, how we store stress, the role of our sleep and our sleep patterns, and how we can overcome issues using solution-focused hypnotherapy. Okay, so let's have a look at our lovely brain. It's lovely, isn't it? So here we go. So the bit of the front of your head here, I don't know whether, hopefully you can see my cursor, is known as the prefrontal cortex. And this is the bit that you actually know as you. It's your conscious part, and it's the part that interacts with the world and the part that you're using actually to watch this presentation yourself. So this is attached to this vast intellectual resource here that we call the intellectual brain. Now, when we operate from this part of the brain, this intellectual brain, we generally get things right in life. It's where we use our rational thoughts. So it will always come up with answers based on a proper assessment of the situation, and it is generally very positive. So when we operate from this part of our brain, the intellectual brain, we don't get stressed or anxious. But, there's a but here, there's another part of the brain, which is the emotional center. And this is the original primitive part. So the center and influential part of this brain is called the amygdala. Sorry, the words are a bit small, so you probably won't be able to see them that clearly, but this is called the amygdala here, this orange bit. And it's also known as the fight, flight, freeze part of our brain. Okay, it's associated with two other very primitive parts. So on the right here, or on the left, depending on how you're looking at it, is the hippocampus, which holds all our primitive and sometimes inappropriate behavioral experiences and patterns and our memories, all our past memories, good and bad. And on the left here is the hypothalamus, which actually regulates all the chemical responses in our body and mind. Okay, moving on. So, we think, what's that? So let us imagine that when you left here, if you were going out this afternoon, you go out of your house, you suddenly run into a gigantic polar bear. What would happen? Well, as you can imagine, your anxiety would shoot up. You would lose intellectual control here, and you'd move from the intellectual part of your brain here down to the emotional part of your brain here. So you'd go sweaty, your hands would go sweaty, your heartbeat would increase, boom, 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 just to increase your energy. Your digestive system would temporarily shut down as blood flow is prioritized to the brain and other organs, and you'd be off like a shot. Now, in the circumstances, seeing this polar bear, this response would be entirely appropriate and you'd be pleased. But, another but, unfortunately, it's the same in life. So, you can see from this slide, when our anxiety goes up, and it can be a gradual process, we lose that intellectual control, and to a greater or lesser extent, our primitive mind takes over. But our primitive mind always operates within the primitive parameters of depression, anxiety, or anger, sometimes a combination of all three. So if our primitive mind thinks that for one reason or another, our life is in some sort of crisis or emergency, it will generally step in to help. But it can only use these three emotional responses of depression, anxiety, and anger. So we come to the caveman. So this is our primitive brain used by primitive man millions of years ago. So back then, when the caveman looked out of his cave and there was snow, ice, or danger, and he couldn't go out to hunt, what he did was he would pull the rug over his head and he wouldn't interact until the situation had changed and he could leave his cave. But unfortunately now we've adapted this to all the modern day symptoms of depression. Those days when you feel down and you just can't get out of your bed, you just don't want to move. And this obviously we call our duvet days. Now, if we were in the jungle in those days, all those millions of years ago, I doubt very much it would be too far away from our panic button at any given time, and ready to run when needed. So we're no longer in the jungle, but juggling work, family life, and this pandemic means that a lot of us are feeling the same effect, in that we just want to run away from it all and hide under our duvets. And I expect some of you have felt that way during this lockdown period and felt awful. You just don't want to get out of bed. Now, anger is merely a primitive way of increasing our strength to defend ourselves against all those wild animals and other wild tribesmen, as in the time of the caveman. Okay, but there's more. The primitive mind is a negative mind. It will always see things from the absolute worst possible perspective. But if you actually think about it, it has to, for your own self-preservation. So if you did run into a polar bear, it wouldn't say, oh, don't worry, it's probably eaten. No, you'd quite rightly be saying, it's going to eat me and I need to get away. So this response is great if we do run into a polar bear, but not so good when, for example, we might have financial struggles, or we have a loved one who is sick, or we've had an argument with our partner, our parents, or our children. But it's also an obsessional mind, it's obsessive. So if you did have a polar bear roaming in your back garden, not that you would, but if you did, you would be reminded of it constantly. And you'd keep checking, wouldn't you? So your primitive mind knows that by reminding you of the danger, you will stay away and be safe. However, this doesn't work with the fears and worries created in our minds. So it's also a vigilant mind. If the perception is that danger is all around, then it is wise to stay on red alert. And again, juggling all the different ups and downs of our lives and demands on us as partners, parents, children, being a boss or an employee makes it very difficult sometimes. And because the primitive mind is not an intellect, it cannot be innovative. So it has to refer to previous patterns of behavior. So if what we did yesterday ensured our survival and kept us safe, then we're encouraged to do it again. And if someone will not leave their house because they're afraid they will have a panic attack, which actually happens a lot, they're staying inside and remaining safe, so they're not going to leave their house. This is the primitive mind thinking that it has found an actual solution. So it's actually rerunning the situation and keeping the person in the house. Okay. However, this is maladaptive and it's not actually correcting the root cause of the panic attack issue. Okay. So moving on. So actually, how do we create this anxiety which causes us to move from the intellectual, sensible part of our brain to the angry, anxious and depressed part? So anxiety is caused by negative thinking. It's not the events in one's life that necessarily cause the perception of crisis. We all deal with the same life events in very different ways. Take a job interview, for example. You've got two people as equally qualified, but one freezes at the interview and the other one sails through. You might have encountered that before. This shows that it must be our thought patterns surrounding the events in our lives. So every negative thought we have is converted into anxiety. And we can also create anxiety by negatively forecasting the future. And they could be things, big things like, oh God, I'm never going to be able to afford to move house. What if my business goes under? Or I'll never be able to have a baby. Or, for example, it could be small things. Take that meeting with your boss, or even this presentation that I'm doing. Here, we should point out that the mind can't tell the difference between imagination and reality. So intellectually, up in your intellectual brain, you know that that meeting or my presentation is going to go okay, because they generally do. But you being you, or me being me, you start thinking about things going wrong. You think about it 50 times. And the actual meeting or presentation goes quite well. But you have attended 51 meetings and 50 have been absolutely disasters. Absolute disasters in your primitive mind. So we can also negatively introspect about the past. For example, that comment you made to your friend, you can't stop thinking about what you actually said, worrying that they might have misunderstood you, or it could be another event that you keep on introspecting about from your past. So, moving on. So now every negative thought that we have is accumulated and stored. And we say that it's stored in a stress bucket. It's lovely stress, these lovely stress buckets here. Now, lots of things can fill up your buckets: day-to-day life, life events. Anyone who's ever got married or had a baby would probably agree that even positive life events are still stressful. But even more so for negative life events like perhaps illness or grief. So we also fill our buckets with the negative thinking we were discussing in our previous slide. Thankfully, we do have a method for emptying our bucket, our stress bucket, and it's known as REM sleep. You can see the man zizzing away here. And that's rapid eye movement sleep. So at night, what we do is we rerun the events of the day and we change them from being an emotional memory down here in our amygdala to a narrative memory, which we have up in our intellectual brain. And this is a memory that we have control over. So this processes the stresses in our bucket and empties it. Now, say, for example, someone really upset you today. Maybe as you were driving to work, or you were driving somewhere today, I'm not going to say the word, but some horrible man or woman cut you up in their car and you had to swerve. And you just cannot forget that incident. And you call your partner or your friend and you tell them about it. And they say to you, oh, Maria, just forget about it. But you really can't. You're thinking about it all day and thinking about it when you go to bed. So during your REM sleep here, what you'll be doing is you'll be rerunning the event either in clear or metaphorically speaking, which is dreaming. And you'll move this memory or this feeling from your primitive brain here to your intellectual brain here, where you have control over it. So when you wake in the morning, you might well have forgotten about that horrible person who cut you up. You might not, but it definitely won't feel as bad, which is great, isn't it? So if you sleep well and effectively, You manage your stress in your bucket, and you probably aren't suffering from anger, anxiety, or depression. However, for some people, their bucket gets so full that it overflows. And REM, unfortunately, is only restricted to about 20% of our sleep patterns. That's probably a small amount of time every hour and a half, some maybe 10 minutes every hour and a half our sleep overnight. So if we have a lot of things to process, the mind will wake you up to get you out of your REM sleep. And you know when it's your mind waking you up because you wake up wide awake and often feel very miserable with lots of thoughts going around in your head. Now, I know it's happened to me many times, and I know it's probably happened to you when you wake up suddenly and you just can't get back to sleep. And you have got to do something. You've got to send that email, or you've got to read that bit in the book, or you've got to do something that you just can't get out of your mind. And that's horrible. It's actually horrible. So often after that, we can't get back to sleep again. And you know the difference between that and maybe a bang or the dog barking in the house, waking you up, for instance. Okay, so now we're in the grip of a bit of a vicious cycle here. The more you have in your bucket, the more time you'll spend in your primitive brain, and the more you'll be encouraged to be negative. So we need to restrict the amount of stuff going into our bucket. And one very effective method is to start to concentrate on a daily basis on the positive things in our lives, which helps us reduce our levels of anxiety and get the real us back. Okay? So before I finish, I just want to tell you about the physiology, about what happens in the brain when we suffer from anxiety disorders and depression. So moving along here. So back to our caveman example now. Hope you like the drawing of the caveman here. So early man and early women, millions of years ago, were given quite definite rewards for carrying out certain evolutionary processes. And if you think about it, they didn't actually have to use their intellectual brains, or they didn't understand their intellectual brains at all, because they weren't thinking about all the things that we're thinking about today. All they were thinking about was going out and getting food for their families, fighting off animals so they didn't get in the cave, fighting off other wild tribesmen, etc., etc. So they got a reward when they hunted and gathered and successfully supported themselves and their families. So I'm sure you can understand that we are better as a tribe rather than individuals. And during the time of the cavemen, they worked as a tribe. Okay, so they got rewarded when they interacted with others, and the reward they quite definitely recognised. And scientists nowadays are adamant about this. They felt motivated, but most of all, it was a coping mechanism for them. And it helped them cope with day-to-day activities, helped them cope better with physical fear, which obviously they had a lot of, made them braver, which they needed to be, and even helped them cope with physical pain, which I'm sure they had a lot of. No doubt they were pleased. And now we know what that reward is, and it's a chemical response in the brain that produces various neurotransmitters that act as catalysts for that sort of mentally healthy behavior. And you know the neurotransmitter that we talked about most, simply because it is the most important, and that is serotonin up here. And I'm sure you all know about serotonin. So when we produce a constant flow of serotonin, we are nice, happy, coping, brave little souls, which is fantastic. Okay, so we need to operate within these positive parameters. Now, I call them the 3 Ps, okay? Positive interaction, positive action, and positive thinking. And although we don't have to go out to hunt, we do now need to be able to interact in a positive way. we need to be active in a positive way. And that brings on actually positive thinking when we do this. And we produce patterns in the brain that gives us a constant flow of serotonin. So here, for example, positive action, doing something nice for somebody during your day. I don't know, buying your wife or partner a beautiful bunch of flowers, or helping a little old lady over the road. Positive interaction, maybe ringing up a mate that you know is a bit down at the moment and saying, hi, you okay? Would you like to go out for a bevy somewhere? With masks on, of course, or how are you doing? And when we're having this positive action and positive interaction on a daily basis, it actually gives us positive thoughts and helps the serotonin come up into our brain, which makes us feel really, really good. Okay, and it helps us to remain in intellectual control. Okay, so what stops the flow of serotonin? Well, you know that when you're down the miserable, very miserable end here, depressed end, we don't actually produce any chemicals at all. It's also almost as if it's like a huge big cloud over our head and we can't rise above it. Okay, but when we're up the anxious end here, we're so jittery because we're producing an overload of adrenalines in our body, and they're stress hormones to make us very anxious, which would be great for if we ran into a polar bear in our garden, but not so good for running our daily lives and, you know, working through our daily lives, especially during these months we've been going through. So by reducing our stress bucket and generating a constant flow of serotonin, we remain in intellectual control, which is what we need to do. So what is solution-focused hypnotherapy and how does it work? So in the first session, when my clients come, we just discuss what's brought them to my therapy room and what they'd like to achieve through the sessions. There is also an explanation of the brain in relation to their issues. So we go through everything about the amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, the anterior cingulate cortex, the prefrontal cortex, and all that. Okay, and I ask them actually to focus on where they want to be. So this is a psychological element of solution-focused hypnotherapy. We focus on where they want to be. We do this by using proven solution-focused techniques. So they are then guided into a state of deep relaxation and positive visualization known as trance, which consolidates all that we've previously discussed. So in a relaxed state, in trance, their minds are very much more responsive to beneficial suggestions, and it's designed to help them to change unhelpful thought patterns. So if you imagine it, just breaking off here a little bit, trance. When you drive on the motorway, you're going somewhere to visit someone. Okay, you're driving along maybe 50 miles, 20 miles, and suddenly you think, oh, I don't actually remember driving along this bit of road. Or you get to the place and you think, I don't remember getting here. You are in trance. If you're actually sitting on your couch in the evening watching a really good Netflix episode, you're watching it, and you're in trance because you're concentrating so hard. And it's actually another word of it, which I like to use, is called focused attention. Okay, so it's definitely and absolutely not stage hypnosis like Paul McKenna. You are actually in control the entire time. For example, if you suddenly had a tickle in your nose, you would just tickle it. Or if you had an itch on your leg, you would itch it. Okay? So therapeutic hypnosis cannot actually make you do anything that you do not want to do. And this you have to really understand. Okay, so nearly finished, guys. So how do we measure success for our clients? So each week we use a program called CORE, which stands for Clinical Outcomes and Research Program. And this measures our clients' progress. And it's just a voluntary program. And although research is collated to look at the effectiveness of solution-focused hypnotherapy, and I can tell you it is very effective, it is completely anonymous. So each week we look at 7 different areas. How your thoughts have been since I saw the client last, how their interactions with others have been, how their levels of activities have been, how their confidence has been, how well they've been utilizing their strengths, and how they would rate their achievements since the last week, and their level of happiness. Okay? So I love using this piece of software. It's great to measure how my clients are going, and I can actually produce a graph for them to show them the progress they're making. Okay, here we go. So this is Darkness2light's overall picture report for all completed clients. And although dips throughout the sessions are completely natural because you can go down, overall we should see this line moving in the right direction, which you can see there, and getting above that blue line in the graph, this blue line, which represents that the client is back in intellectual control. So the client is taught the skills and habits to remain above that line long after their therapy has ended. As you can see, clients are meeting that point in general after about 8 sessions. So here we go. There we go. So we've got a little dip there, and then they come up again, and whoa, right up there. So after about 8 sessions, they reach that level, which shows that it can be quite a quick therapy. So that's actually all for now, guys. And just want to thank you for watching this presentation. And if you want to follow me on my social media. Just look for me on those channels. And if you want to connect with me via my website details are there, or you can email me, or you can contact me directly. So thank you so much for coming on this trip with me, and I hope it wasn't too boring for you and you enjoyed it, and you've got a little bit of an idea about what I do. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Stop
Thank you very much for that. Excellent. Thank you. We're back. Great. Let's go. Okay, great. Thanks so much, Maria. Right, I've just put a question in there. Natasha's just dropped a question in. It's quite a long question, so I've just put it.
Thank you, Monique.
I've just put it into the chat. Don't know if you can see that, Maria.
Oh, sorry, in the chat box.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Oh, goodness. Let's just move up. You know, different. It doesn't bring you joy. You need to establish boundaries for self-care versus not wanting to do something despite it being fairly safe. An example might be the anxiety in joining an online meeting, but actually you have been to every other online meeting and need to have a break. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Natasha. That's a very, very good question. I mean, obviously, it's completely up to you if you want to do something that you want to do. I mean, obviously, if you enjoy doing it, I mean, I don't know whether many of us actually enjoy doing online meetings like this. There's always a little bit of nervousness there. But as I said in my presentation, we think that it's going to be completely go haywire and go wrong. But actually, in our intellectual brain, we know that it's going to go right, but it's our primitive mind down below which is saying, oh, you don't want to do that, it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. So if you want to actually do something, not actually wanting to do something because you won't enjoy it, if you don't enjoy it, then just don't do it. But if you do enjoy it and you really want to do it, I mean, I'm sure that you enjoy doing these online meetings, and you're really, really good at them. You are really good at them. You just have to just think to yourself, I'm going to really enjoy this, and not let your primitive mind say, oh, it could go wrong. So, anxiety in joining online meeting, but actually you have been to every online meeting and need to have a break. Yeah, you're right. I know during lockdown we've been to so many Zoom meetings, haven't we? We're completely zoomed out, and even though we might enjoy them, we say, "Oh no, I want a break." But that's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. Sorry, I don't know whether I've really managed to answer your question, but I hope I've answered it a little bit, Natasha. But thank you so much for asking it.
Yeah, thanks very much, Natasha. Hopefully you can still see me and hear me. I think my son's on the internet, and I've got a great internet connection, so it's dropped out a little bit.
Oh yeah, you're a bit frozen.
A bit frozen. All right, okay, I'm just staying very still. That's what it is.
I thought you were staying very, very still, Roland.
Never mind. No, we'll carry on anyway. I can have a frozen face. Yeah, so Maria, I mean, what actually happens to our brains under stress? Is there some sort of what sort of happens?
Yeah, well, a lot happens to our brains during stress. Basically, if we have a thought, any thought, we could be, for example, we could be doing our work, we could be just going along and maybe doing an email or something, then something might trigger us and we'll think about, oh my goodness, I need to do that, but I'm afraid of doing that. As I was saying in my presentation, suddenly we think about a friend that we've said something to, and we're thinking, oh God, maybe they haven't taken that right, or have I upset them? And we just can't get it out of our mind. And it's actually in our primitive minds. It's our primitive mind saying, oh goodness, you really ought to do something about that. When actually, if we think about it intellectually and positively and creatively, we're saying to ourselves, but that doesn't matter. Actually, I don't have to think about that now. I'm actually doing this really important email. I'm sure it's all okay, and I'll get in touch with my friend maybe tonight or tomorrow and have a chat with them. So basically, it's making our thoughts very negative, even though they don't need to be negative, because sometimes things happen to us and it goes down into our primitive mind. When it doesn't need to be, if we think about it from up here. And as I said to you in the presentation, our primitive mind is completely the dominant part, because we've been using our primitive mind for thousands and thousands of years. For thousands of years, our intellectual mind didn't really come into play because we were protecting ourselves and keeping us safe. So the primitive mind is there all the time. It's actually wanting to keep us safe. So as Natasha was saying, asking the question, it wants to actually keep us safe. So sometimes it can actually come into play when it doesn't need to come into play. It could be like, for example, now wanting to go out and thinking, oh, shall I go out? I'm going to go into town. Shall I wear my mask? And you wear your mask and you get into town, and there are a lot of people around, and suddenly your primitive mind is saying, oh my God, I shouldn't really be here. I need to get away. And it could provoke a panic attack where suddenly your heart goes boom, 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 and you feel absolutely rotten because your primitive mind is trying to keep you safe. But in effect, your intellectual mind knows that you're safe. You're 2 meters apart from everybody, and you're going to be okay. You're wearing your mask. You're just going to do what you need to do, and then you'll be out of there. But the primitive mind, the amygdala, is there to keep you safe, but sometimes it's working when it doesn't need to. And that can be so true for lots and lots of situations, all manner of situations in our lives. Does that answer your question, Roland?
I think so, yes. Yeah, thank you very much, Maria. I think you talk about stress buckets as well. And
yeah.
It's so through your day, we all come across like stressful situations. So it might not just be one thing. You might have like multiple things which gradually through that day fill up and make everything more stressful.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you only have to get in the car in the morning to go to work, and someone, I'm not going to use the word, but someone really makes us angry if they don't let us out of the road, or we don't let them out the road and they go like that to us or something. And that's just the start of the day.
Yeah, they're probably driving a BMW, I reckon.
Pardon?
Probably driving a BMW, I reckon.
Oh yeah, or a white van, man. Yeah. Normally, yeah, and we'll get to work, and we'll sit down and we will be on our computer, and then something will happen. We'll have a technical glitch. And we're going, I need to get this done, instead of just taking some deep breaths and just thinking about it carefully. It's our primitive mind saying, goodness me. And then we're thinking, okay, I need to get that piece of work done. I need to get that piece of work done. What am I going to have for tea tonight? I've got to go and get the shopping, or anything. It's this part of our mind creating havoc for us, where if we use this part of our mind and thought about it properly, we could say, well, don't worry about it. I can do that piece of work this afternoon, or on the way back from here, I'll stop at Tesco's. I'll get something to eat. But it all builds up during the day, and then we get to the night time, and we could have about 10 or 12 things that have happened, and we just can't relax. And so that's why we say things like, turn off your phone at a certain time during the night. You should really have 2 hours a night before you go to sleep, because stop all these things pinging at you and making you think. It's just one example. And we need to sit and just take deep breaths. If we're feeling anxious, we need to just sit, take some really good deep breaths in and out, just for 5 minutes to help us relax. And then we can just come back to it, and our brain, our intellectual brain, will work properly for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think a lot of times people don't actually realise how actual stressed they are, and how anxious they are, and how much they've actually got going in their lives, and those stress buckets are filling up. And they don't actually realise how much.
Especially now, Roland, with work patterns and our businesses. Are our business is going to be okay? I haven't got many clients. I need to get more money in. Family, house, all that sort of thing. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And so we have all these stresses building up during the day, and then we go to sleep, and either we can't go to sleep, or we go to sleep and then suddenly we'll wake up. And I know it's happened to me a lot, and we'll be wide awake, and we're thinking, why am I wide awake? Why am I wide awake? We just think, I can't go to sleep until I've read that chapter in that book, or I've done that email to someone, or And actually what I do is I do come down and I do the things that I need to do. It might be a couple of hours, but I come down, I do it, and then I have a cup of chamomile tea, and I go back to bed and I go to sleep. And that happens with lots and lots and lots of people, but they don't understand what's actually happening. It's the stress bucket saying, you need to wake up. And it's the REM, our REM sleep. Because when we're in REM sleep, we are in a catatonic state. We're almost paralyzed. We can't move, because our intellectual brain is working so hard to process everything that's gone on, right? All our stresses, and to move it out of our stress bucket. Okay? So, yeah. And as I say, I've got my little brain here. And my back bit of my brain's fallen off, but oh God, it's fallen to pieces. Sorry, this brain comes in 32 different pieces, and I got it from Amazon, would you believe it? And then, so this is our primitive brain down here. You probably can't really see, but the amygdala's down there, and the hippocampus is there, and the hypothalamus is there. So this part of the brain inside is our primitive brain. And this part of the brain on the top, so I'm gonna try and put him back together again. This side of the brain is the top bit. This is our prefrontal cortex, and this is our intelligent brain. And we also have something called the sorry, I've forgotten the word now. Anyway, it's it'll come back in a minute. It's a bit like a secretary that sits in our intellectual brain. It's like the secretary, PA, who's helping the intellectual brain to work properly, because she's got all the files on our lives. Okay, and I like to call this part of the brain the boss. So with my clients, I say, this is your boss part of the brain. Okay, this is the brain that keeps you going. Okay, so anterior cingulate cortex, that's it, the PA part of the brain that's down here. Okay, right, I'll have to put that back together again in a minute.
I have a question in from Monique. So can this form of trance help rewire genuine fear?
Definitely, yeah, definitely, Monique. Yeah. we all have lots of fears about things. I mean, when I first went to my session, my Solution-Focussed Hypnotherapy, it was actually for my fear of flying. Because since I had my daughter, I think it started after that, my fear of flying grew and grew and grew and grew, and it was absolutely awful. I knew I was going on a long haul flight in 2017, and I needed help. And I went for some hypnotherapy. And in fact, we didn't really talk an awful lot about it, but I came away and I got on my flight and I was absolutely fine. So yes, fears, you've just got to assess the fears, look at them, and it can definitely help you. I use techniques to help you to get over those fears. And we are all fearful of something, all of us. So yeah, you can, Monique. Okay.
Right, thank you very much. Thanks very much, Maria. We're coming to the end now, but yeah, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciated that.
Glad to do it.
I mean, you put up your social links at the end there, so you're on LinkedIn, aren't you? And
I'm on LinkedIn. Yes, I'm on LinkedIn. My Facebook page is just called Darkness2light Hypnotherapy. My Facebook is it's just Maria Chumas Baker, and my Instagram is at Maria Hypnotherapy. I'm on Twitter, but I've got rid of that now because I don't like it. So, so Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So please come and join me. I also run a storytelling session on a Monday and Thursday at 6:30, where I just read stories to people just for half an hour. Just to help them to relax and just to chill out from the day or for the evening that they've got. So that's also on my Facebook page if anybody wanted to join this free group. So there we go. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that, should I? But it's completely free.
That's fine. That's fine. Well, thank you very much for that, Maria. I really appreciate you joining us today. If there's anybody else out there who'd like to come on with our Lunch and Learns, you'll be more than welcome. Please just contact me and we'll fit you in, schedule in later in the year. But thanks so much. Hope everyone has a lovely Wednesday, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.